he lays out a pretty strong case for how this whole sales as a service thing can, like, seriously change how businesses work, you know?
Definitely, yeah. And the way he digs into the problems with the old way of doing sales, the traditional model, it's spot on, especially in today's world.
Totally. So for folks who might not be super familiar, like, what's the big deal with traditional sales? What's not working?
Well, Ramachandran's argument is basically that nowadays customers, they've got all this information at their fingertips. They're online, comparing stuff, making decisions before they even talk to a salesperson. Yeah.
Right. Like, I do that all the time. But then how does this sales as a service, this SaaS thing, how's that fix the problem? It seems like a huge jump going from building your own sales team to just outsourcing the whole thing.
It's not always about outsourcing everything. It's more like, think of it as getting this specialized help, like right when you need it. Almost like an on-demand sales team that grows or shrinks depending on what's going on, you know?
So you're not stuck with, like, all the costs of hiring and training a whole bunch of people?
Exactly. And you get access to these experts, people with tons of experience who could just jump in and get things moving.
I bet that's super appealing for startups, especially when they don't have a ton of cash to throw around.
Totally. There's actually this case study Ramachandran mentions, a health tech startup. They used a sales as a service company to launch in a new market. And get this, their customer acquisition jumped by 20% in just 3 months.
Wow. That's incredible. I can't imagine doing that with the traditional sales team, especially that quick.
It'd be super tough. So, yeah, we see how startups can grow faster this way. But hold on, what about companies that are already, like, established? They've got sales teams already. Why would they change things up?
Good point. What's in it for them?
Well, for these bigger companies, sales as a service can bring in fresh ideas, new ways of doing things. They get access to specific knowledge, maybe stuff their current team doesn't have, you know, whether it's about a certain industry or just new sales techniques and technology.
So it's like upgrading their sales team, helping them keep up with how things are changing.
Exactly. But, of course, it's not just about plugging in a new service.
Yeah.
There's got to be a shift in how the whole company thinks about sales, right?
Yeah, you can't just force it in there. It's got to be part of the company culture, right?
Totally. That's a big point Ramachandran makes, having this sales-oriented culture everywhere in the company, not just in the sales department.
Mhm.
It means getting rid of those walls between departments, making sure everyone's working towards the same goals, and letting everyone contribute to the sales process, you know?
Like teamwork, right? But like teamwork across the whole company.
Exactly. And Ramachandran, he specifically talks about the role of the founder, like the head honcho, in setting this tone. It starts at the top.
Right. So if the founder's all about sales, everyone else is more likely to be on board.
He gives this cool example, a software company where the founder was obsessed with good customer relationships. Like, he encouraged everyone, even engineers and marketing people, to talk to customers, get their feedback, and use it to make better products.
So it wasn't just the sales team's responsibility. It was everyone's job to think about the customer.
Yeah, and the result was happier customers who kept coming back for more. Pretty smart.
It makes you wonder how CFOs feel about all this. They're all about the numbers. Where do they fit into this whole sales as a service thing?
Oh, Ramachandran dives into the financial stuff too. And CFOs, they love this part. For starters, a lot of times with sales as a service, you only pay for results.
Like, you don't pay them just for showing up. You pay them when they actually bring in sales.
Right. So instead of having all these fixed costs like salaries and stuff, CFOs can budget way more effectively. Their spending directly matches the money coming in.
I bet that makes them happy. Makes things more predictable, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But, I mean, let's be real. There's got to be some downsides, some things to watch out for. Nothing's perfect, right?
For sure. What are some of the things Ramachandran warns about?
Well, he's really big on making sure things are crystal clear between the company and the sales as a service provider. Like, everyone needs to know exactly what they're supposed to do, what the expectations are, and communication has to be super open. Plus, all that data needs to be kept safe and secure.
So it's all about building a solid partnership where everyone trusts each other.
Absolutely. And he also says, don't just hand over everything to the sales as a service people. Companies need to keep some of that sales knowledge and expertise in-house.
So it's like a balancing act. You're bringing in these experts, but you're not giving up control entirely.
Right. It's about making sure the company's still in the driver's seat. So I think we've laid out the basics here, the good, the bad, the challenges. Now let's dig deeper into what actually makes up a successful sales as a service model.
Sounds good to me. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and break it all down.
All right, so we're back and ready to dig into those core components of a successful sales as a service model. Like, what are the must-haves?
Yeah, Ramachandran, he really emphasizes a few key things. And first up, it's all about using technology the right way. Like, you got to have those CRM systems, customer relationship management, those analytics platforms, all those automation tools, and platforms for collaboration.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like having the right tech seems pretty basic.
Right. It's all about streamlining those processes, keeping track of how things are going, and making sure everyone's in the loop. But it's not just about having the tech, it's knowing how to use it to really make sales work better.
Got it. So it's like you can have the fanciest tools, but if you don't know how to use them.
Exactly. And this is where things get interesting. Ramachandran's big on aligning sales and marketing. Like those two teams got to be working together or you're going to miss out on opportunities. Oh, I've totally seen that happen where sales and marketing are like ships passing in the night. It's a recipe for disaster.
Totally. And that's why Ramachandran, he says you got to have this shared vision, a clear strategy for how you're going to engage customers.
So both teams are on the same page, working towards the same goal.
Yeah, like everyone knows their roles, there's a communication plan, and everyone's sharing those customer insights.
It's like breaking down those walls between departments, right?
Exactly. He even suggests regular meetings between sales and marketing so they can talk about progress, give each other feedback, really get things flowing.
Makes sense. But I can see how that could be tough in big companies where everyone's kind of stuck in their own little world.
You're right. It takes effort, especially from the top, to really change that culture. But Ramachandran gives this cool example, a company that made this special task force with people from both sales and marketing, just to focus on making that customer onboarding process smoother.
Oh, like when a new customer signs up, they make sure it's a good experience?
Exactly. And by getting those two teams to work together, they figured out what wasn't working, made communication better, and the customers were happier.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got the tech part and sales and marketing working together. What else is crucial for this whole sales as a service thing to really work?
But Ramachandran is big on this one, and it might seem obvious, but it's super important continuous training and development.
You mean like keeping everyone's skills sharp, learning new stuff?
Totally. And not just for the company's own team, but for the sales as a service provider's team, too.
Makes sense, especially in sales. Things change so fast. New tech, new approaches. You got to keep learning, right?
Exactly. The sales landscape is always evolving, so both sides need to invest in keeping everyone up to date.
So are we talking like workshops, certifications, stuff like that?
Yeah, all sorts of things. Workshops on new sales techniques, maybe getting certified in specific sales tech, even mentorship programs where experienced people share their knowledge.
So it's really about creating that culture of learning, always getting better.
Exactly. And it's an investment that pays off big time for both the company and the provider. It ensures everyone has the skills they need to succeed.
Okay, so we've got the tech, sales, and marketing working together, and everyone's constantly learning and improving. Anything else we should add to the list for a winning SaaS strategy?
Ramachandran brings up a point that might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked in the hustle and bustle of everything. It's all about being customer-centric.
Putting the customer at the heart of everything you do.
Right. Like really understanding their needs, going above and beyond what they expect.
Totally agree. It's easy to get caught up in all the sales tactics and forget that you're dealing with actual people. But how does that customer focus actually work in this sales as a service model?
Well, it starts with knowing your target customer inside and out. What are their pain points? What motivates them? How do they make buying decisions? And sales as a service providers need to be experts in their client's industry and target market to really represent them well and connect with potential customers.
They have to know their stuff, not just about sales, but about the product and the people who buy it.
Absolutely. And then there's data and analytics. Using all that information to personalize interactions, make the customer experience feel more customized.
So it's not just about tracking numbers, it's about using data to make those interactions more meaningful.
Exactly. But speaking of numbers, how do we actually measure if this whole sales as a service thing is working?
That's a great question. Like, how do you know if it's a success or not?
That's where metrics and performance evaluation come in. Ramachandran's big on setting